Aloha. I wanted to do this video and kind of keep the flow going from the last video. Like, all these videos are really just like an extension off the last video. It's just telling the same story in from a different perspective. So they kind of go together as one book. As I'm saying, I mean, I've seen it for a while, but one story leads to the next story, and how I observe my regular day, like when I'm just like walking around, it'll trigger whatever comes up next, and it makes it obvious to me. So today I was just sitting outside, and I was watching these flies fly around and you know, you see a swarm of flies just kind of fly around themselves like a school of fish. And I've been doing some research with magnetics for the past couple years now, and really trying to understand magnetics and the electromagnetic frequencies that we emit and experience, and the information that's within that space, like what all this stuff means, like how all these connections that we have with each other are the unseeable, pretty much, like leading into the spirit and the soul, and going into like what all this stuff really means in our connections, because it's been easy to see the disconnections that are out there. In fact, that's the essence of the mind control, the collective mind control colonial separation grid program. It's just a divide and conquer to the point of you not even understanding or knowing yourself, where you came from, what you're about, your true essence, your true power, your fire, your connections with spirit, everything that we have cherished so in the ancient times has been systematically disassembled and destroyed and hidden from us, and actually used against us with the way the television is designed, with the way mainstream culture is designed, with the way the university system is designed, with the way our own understandings of our universe, the globe model, is designed, with the way our origins are repeated to us over and over and over again. You can see the globe model being put in your face on a regular basis when you're watching television, or when you're watching anything, movies, TV shows, cartoons, in the school, everything. It's all around you. The evolution program is always being pumped in your face. People are watching The Big Bang. They made this TV show called The Big Bang Theory, or The Big Bang show. They made it famous, and every time they play that show, in the beginning of the show, they run you through a psychological mind control program of you are a monkey. So this is that whole supremacy program is that it's based upon the fact that it's so many facts, but it's really like trying to protect their own existence. So they have to create this idea of importance, this idea of culture, this is why pop in the mainstream exists. This is why the distraction grid exists, to maintain its importance, to complicate nature and make nature out of balance, and present themselves as the balance factor for the out of balance nature that they've created in the first place. So the whole colonial program going around the world, systematically spreading disease, both physically and psychologically, and just putting up military bases all over the place, installing religions, installing the university system, installing separation it not only separates us from our natural magnetics, but it also separates us, or it also amplifies themselves. So this is what we've come to today, is that we have been duped into this out of balance. We've been separated from our fire, our water, our elements. We've been separated from our magnetism, our culture, our dances, our ceremony, our electricity, our actual fire, our spirit fire has been dampened by a system that is not ours. It is not ours. And I mean ours as in the collective as a whole. Because you can see that birds are very... birds are birds, and then you have different birds that fly together. So I was seeing this when I was looking at the flies flying around. I was like, those are particular flies. It's a group of flies. They're creating some kind of vortex. Like it looks like a dance, and it actually reminded me of a time when I took salvia with two of my brothers, and when we were in like the height of it, and you only really need to do it once. It's just an experience thing, because it's really, really intense. But I remember one time at the height of our trip, I remember we started running around my apartment, and we were in this kind of tunnel of energy. And when I was looking at those flies fly around, that's what I actually it shocked me back into that memory. I was thinking like, whoa, we were creating because it felt like we were creating some kind of tunnel or experience. We had a shared, after the trip, we shared what that was, what that moment was. And it looked like, when we explained it to each other, it looked similar. It looked and felt the same way. We were in this tunnel of energy, this tube of, or it actually was like a donut, because we were going around the center, the kitchen, and through from the living room through the kitchen, and around and around and around the island. And we were running like it was like a childlike moment, but we were just going with it, and that's what it felt like. It felt like we were creating some kind of energetic, like a magnetic force of some sort that we could experience together. And I was looking at these flies thinking like, man, they gotta be doing something. And it has to do something with the way the birds do this stuff and the way fish do this stuff. There's something about the way you dance, the way you swim, the way you fly. And there's something with coming together with your, and this is why I go so much into finding out who and what you are, like, and why the watered down program of the human new age deception is to just say we're all one, we're all human. That's, that is it's disturbing to me. It's very, very disturbing, because we completely miss out. Well, first of all, it's a control grid, because what the hell? So it's a control grid, and it just waters everything down. It's an extension. It's a spiritual extension of the colonial program. This is what the new age, we're all one, it's all love and light program is. It creates an out for those who have conquered and colonized the land and the people and the minds, the psyche of the entire human dancers, the different styles of dances, but it also it waters everything down. It just throws everything, like the geometry of African people, the geometry of the Inca, the geometry of the Mayan people, the geometry of the Polynesian people, the geometry of the Hopi, the geometry of the Native Americans, the geometry of the Mexicans. It's a thing. Like it's the geometry of you know what I mean when I speak on that level. Like these bees have a connection to the harmonics of this earth plane, to where if they were not here, we would not be here. The entire ecosystem would be thrown out of a loop. So if they are that important in relation to our connections to all that is in this physical reality, then how important is the geometry and the balances of the human design, and how important is the geometry of each group that is that dances their own way, that flies their own way, that swims their own way. How important are those balances? Because that is the actual design of the program, is to get people to jump into this synthetic hive mind, the artificial version of reality we're calling the mainstream, pop, democratic, fiat currency, maritime admiralty law, so-called this is the future system. We've bought into this illusion that is founded on a destructive intelligence. And that destructive intelligence it goes all the way down to the very natures of us, our dreams, how we interact with each other, and our history as a whole, and our down to our genetic codes. This is why they're genetically modifying our bodies with the food. This is why the fluoride is in the water, to numb your entire experience. This is why prescription drugs are quote unquote legal. And it's like that's on purpose. Like the way prescription drugs are out there and what's happening, what it's doing to people, that's on purpose. The way the war on drugs, that whole thing, that is on purpose. The installation of guns and drugs into the inner city communities, that is on purpose. I don't give a shit how good, you know, some of the FBI and CIA people who have escaped, you know, or shared information or whatever. I don't give a shit about that. There's a bigger picture to this than a few people who have jumped out of the herd of systematic disease spreading and implosion of the human design. It's a bigger story than that, and it goes down to our very natures, our very understandings of who and what we are, our geometry, our energetic, our electromagnetic connections with each other. Like, it goes down to that space, and the distraction of the political scene as a whole, it keeps you in this constant TV vibration. You are constantly bombarded by microwave energies that convince you by the way they flickerate in your face that they are important. This is why Trump is out there, to make you really focus your energy on, because all this energy exists in the ethers. So if people were automatically dumb. So when they put Obama in there, that was like the tippy top of their game, because people still really believed in the political system on a positive scale. So they vested all their energy, because energy is energy. It doesn't matter if it's a positive or negative energy. These parasites who have created this separation within the way we experience our reality, they exist on energy as a whole. They don't care whether it's us really enjoying something or really hating something. It's that energy peaking, the peaks of that energy, the top peaks and the low peaks are what these parasites feed off of. And it's in the etheric energies, the etheric realms of our reality. So when Obama was installed into this reality, it was like the up and up, and they only could really install that. They needed to install that because we were at an all-time low with Bush. 8 years of baby Bush just destroying everything and creating this so-called war on terrorism. That was a low of the low of the low. So they needed to bring in an amplification, a hope campaign, a change campaign, another peak. Because they couldn't peak lower anymore. Otherwise, you wouldn't believe in the system and you would expand outside of the system. But they need you to believe in the system in order to distract you, and really keep you vesting your energy in it. So that's when Obama was installed, and of course he created this this energy of just, it's numb. He just numbed everybody out. So now when he took the office, everybody was like, oh, okay, good, we did it. We got a black president. Now our job is done. We'll just sit around. And that is a big problem. Since we were swimming, people were thinking. When Bush was in there, we were like, man, something's got to change. Something's got to happen. And they gave you that change. So now that we had a so-called up, now we're being presented with this down, and this down is Trump and Hillary. And since the vibrations can't be spread out over a course of 4 or 8 years anymore, as people are thinking and connected, have so much information now, that they have to bring something in quick, and they have to amplify it to an international scale. And this is what I think is going to happen with this whole election, because people are not going to just sit around and let Hillary, this criminal, do what she's going to do if she becomes president. And they're sure as hell ain't going to be cool with Trump sitting up there as president. So either way, it's win-win for them, because they got the people by the balls in order to invest their energy into the focus of that program as a whole. And since it's so extreme, like Barack Obama, the first black president, that's an extreme energy people vested their energy into. The only thing that can trump that is Trump himself, and the first woman president. That's the only thing that can trump those energies, because they gotta suck you in. These parasites gotta suck you in so you can focus all of your energy that you could be that you would be focusing on if you were connected to your essence, your origins. They need you to vest it in the shallow layers of your reality and throw you out of whack, completely throw you out of your vortex of connecting to yourself, your family, your culture, and your spirit. So they create this artificial everything, and technology is there as the middleman to create this like comfortable space of distraction. And at the essence of it is separating you from your dance, separating you from your ceremony, separating you from your essence that is that has naturally manifested into your reality without having to adjust to a destructive program or a so-called normal program. Nature, like our actual dance, our music, our art, our ceremonies, our relationships, the way we swim, the way we fly, the way we create our magnetics, the way we spin in the sky. If we were birds, if we were those those flies I was looking at earlier today, the way we spin, like there's a moment where they're kind of just like all over the place, and then they catch this they catch this speedy tunnel, and then they spin around. Like they're creating, how I was seeing it, they're creating like this solid being, this solid energetic. They're expanding their bodies from one little fly to like a fly consciousness in a sense, or a bee consciousness, or a bird consciousness. When they spin around like that, they are creating themselves into a bigger being. And when you make like an antenna, so like a spinning antenna, so when they just like it's like the antennas in your cell phone, like kinky hair is the same thing. Like, this is what the curls in your hair, that's an antenna. That's what that does. This is the antennas that are in your phone are based upon the way nature is. So the technology is synthesizing what nature is about. And as long as we keep buying into this synthetic version of our reality, we are empowering the artificial reality, the artificial intelligence grid, and those who profit from that space. And we are also dumbing down and closing the doors on our natural spaces, our natural dances. And you can even take it even to as far as like when people say white people can't dance, like it's an actual dance, like it's an actual culture. This is why like the supremacy program exists, in order to just kind of gray everything out and distract you with just like these weird, it's the outskirts of what is natural. So we're bombarded with the sexual program through technology. We're bombarded with through social media, through television, through the movies, and that energy is focused. It's these multiple layers. So you get triggered with watching television and watching movies and only seeing like pretty Caucasian women, like that. When that program gets amplified in your face, like you are creating, that's a flicker rate that is creating a magnetism in your reality, and that is spread all over the world. Like with this whole, and Trump, this goes into the Trump thing too. Like that's a whole thing with the whole Miss Universe and all that stuff. It's the same thing like with the White House and the presidents. All these years we've been underneath this colonial program. The politics have just been the privilege mentality of the politics program. The patriarchal system has locked us down with the government, and our psyche has been locked down artistically and energetically with the feminine energies of that supremacy program, with what I just mentioned with the whole like Miss Universe stuff, and how basically only Caucasian people have been amplified in your reality. It's like see it really as a mind control right now, for people to understand where I'm coming from, who are having difficulties with understanding what race is and that whole thing. Because that just as much as people say, oh, it's not about race and all this other stuff, see that as an actual defense program for itself. That's why that sentiment exists. Is so you don't understand the depths of what this whole cultural ceremonial dance that you exist as. They want you to be fighting yourself and each other, so you won't answer the questions that disassemble the actual control grid itself. This is why this is why Black Lives Matter is out there, to create still a power grid. Like you're still asking. It's a powerless state. Black Lives Matter. It's not like, okay, so who does it matter to? So you're already giving, it's really a cry for help. Like it's just a cry for help. Now there's many different ways that you can approach sharing that same sentiment with people from an empowered space. And the so-called they don't want that. They want you to vest your energy into focusing on maintaining the so-called they as in power. So when you say Black Lives Matter, you're saying Black Lives Matter to the power grid, instead of understanding that, we're the origins of humanity, the origins of dance, the origins of ceremony, the origins of the indigenous cultures, period, outside of the control grid, outside of the military industrial complex, outside of the prison industrial complex, outside of the slave state post-Columbian shallow reality that we exist in. They want you to forget about these dances. They want you to forget about your essence. They want you to forget about and continue to invest your energy in the victimization program. That is what Black Lives Matter is. It's the victimization program. Not saying that it's like wrong or anything. It exists. It's out there to help people realize that something is really wrong here. Like it exists to exist, but it's being manipulated. When it's being manipulated to tell a particular story, that's when it no longer exists to exist. It exists to control. And that's what the mainstream media is utilizing this energy for. This is all etheric energies. And it keeps you, just like the politics, it keeps you vesting your energy into a limited state of mind. So I wanted to share this as an example of like what is beyond the control grid, like what's beyond what's within our imagination and our curiosity outside of being stuck in this globe model mentality. What's beyond that? And individually, people who are looking into the flat earth stuff and even all the other kinds of theories on what the earth may be, they're connecting with some sort of creative intelligence. That's a heavy duty energy. That's a heavy duty connection to be making that the indigenous people already had. This is what all these dances are. This is what all this ceremony is about. This is a war on ceremony. These are the Mayan people. These are the Mayan dances. Like, what does all this stuff mean? They already knew. Like, they already knew, even down to the very natures of how we address ourselves. Like, the United States is not America. The United States is a corporation. It is a hub. It is basically the White House of the Americas. It's not even American. Like, Mexicans are more American than so-called Americans, like in the Republican National Convention. Mexicans. Yeah, actual Mexicans are more American than the Republican Americans that they constantly talking about, we need to take our country back. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? That is a magic spell. Make America work again. Make America great again. That is a magic spell being sent down by magicians. And the only way that shit could work is if you are completely uprooted from your origins. And you also have a peer group that has no connection to their origins because they created a shallow version of it. And that's why we always learn about like the Civil War, the War of 1812, the slavery program, the Roots TV show, and on the other hand, they're pumping your heads with technology and the alien agenda and all this transgender, transhumanistic stuff. It's adjusting your reality to adjusting your reality to the program of normality, which is a separation from nature. What is normal for this reality is not natural. What is normal for This control grid, which is constantly bombing and destroying, it's based upon war. It's based upon disease, sickness. It's based upon you being sick so you can buy into this system. It's based upon you not knowing anything. This is why the public education system is the way it is. It's based upon you not having a connection with your spirit, your creative intelligence, because you have to be victimized and caught up in a space of the destructive intelligence, investing your energy in the victimization program of the destructive intelligence. It has no connection with the earth plane. That's the most extreme space about the globe model. That's what's going on with the globe model stuff. It's to separate you from your people, separate you from your balances, separate you from your harmonics, your dance, your creative intelligence, your soul. This is what the birth certificate program is. They get your soul, the soul prints of your feet, and they lock it in a vault. You are now a number, a slave prison state number, to be cataloged and price tagged as collateral towards the debt of this supremacy program, this separation program. And we see that the race relation stuff and the race war, all that stuff, that's just what's happening on the ground. This shit goes all the way up into the spirit space, your soul level, your etheric expressions, your higher self, your connections to energy itself. This is what all these dancers were doing. This is what all these ceremonies were about. This is what all these connections that still exist today are about. And this is why they're so demonized, and they called people savages. They said you are a savage in order to make themselves be seen as not savages, as the new, as the evolved human, as so they can consider you and call you a minority, so you can psychologically separate yourself from your true power, your true connections. And this is why I get so irritated with the whole so-called flat earth community when they're only talking about the sciences, or the so-called sciences, but just like the basic understandings of the flat earth. And they use these Mayan images, and they use these Inca images to show proof, so-called proof of the flat earth, but they don't go into the actual people who are telling that story. They don't go into that shit. They stay on this shallow, commercial, fast food version of what the flat earth or what anything outside of the globe earth actually is, what that creative intelligence is, what the people actually are expressing here. If bees are this important to the harmonics of this earth plane, then what the hell is humanity doing here? How important is it for us to connect with spirit? How important is it for us to remain engaged in ceremony? How important is it for us to dance? To maintain our dance? How important is it for us to be connected with each other on a space of actual knowingness, not a space of just like, oh, well, we're all one. That's all you need to know. We're just human. That is very disturbing when you go into understanding and really seeing what these individuals were really tapped into all over the world. That is a problem. For the new age, and this is why, another reason why I'm making this video right now, the new age is in the front of that shit. So they're the new age people. They're taking the Mandela effect and they're just backing up CERN. A lot of them are just being like, thank you, CERN. Thank you for triggering our reality and changing these timelines and adjusting our perspectives to really see this stuff. Like, you're not looking at shit. You are trying to co-opt something natural, just like these colonial scientism-ists are doing. It's the same shit, different day. This is where you have all these new age people talking about, I understand this and I understand that. How? How can you jump straight from slavery and Donald Trump as a potential president to aliens and the Pleiades and spaceships and technology and all that stuff? You don't see that as a problem? You don't see that as an actual thing that is being manipulated to make you disconnect from our actual dances? People don't see this because we're caught up in our own bubbles. I used to be caught up in the New Age understanding until I hit that wall. And then there's that point where you hit that wall and then you're just like, wait a second, you have that choice. Are you going to question your reality and everything that you vested in, which is pretty much another death? Like, you are experiencing another death. Everything you've built up, you have to be able to let it go because it's not yours. And if you're doing it for yourself, like only for use or only for yourself and not to expand the greater good, then there's something there that you have a choice. You can stay in that bubble and keep to yourself, but you will also have to deal with the consequences of what that actually means. Now, there's nothing wrong with serving yourself because you're actually serving the higher, the greater good overall, as long as you are connected to the space, like your intent is there with the creative intelligence, the most high space. But there's a fine line that goes on between service to self and service to others, to where it balances in with your dances on your journey and in relation to the collective journey. Right now, there is still a lot of people being bombed by drones right now. There's still a lot of people being vaccinated with all these destructive vaccines. There's still all this destructive stuff that's going around in our reality that a lot of these so-called new age individuals could help people understand and bring awareness to, so it can actually stop if they were to remove themselves from their boxes, which would take having to have another death, like being vulnerable, letting go of what's been comfortable for so long in order to help out the next person. Like, that's one of the hardest things you can do, especially when you come from a space of such separation, such darkness and destruction before you got to this comfortable place. But that is the test. Are you doing this for yourself, or are you going to do this for all that is? And in the new age space, it's comfortable to say that. You can just say, oh, and so it is. All that is, and all this fucking rationalistic bullshit that is just on one level, like, you can see how it exists, but that's just like jumping from Trump to aliens. It's the same shit. It's just a distraction. And some people are needing to be in that space in order to find themselves, and in order to see whether or not they're going to get caught up in that reality, in that bubble again. So instead of it being like a control grid bubble, like if you were, the good example would be like a business person, a business person who's been in business for like 40 years, and then all of a sudden they had this awakening, and then they start reconnecting with like meditation, yoga, the chakras, start understanding all this stuff that exists. And then so before that, they were controlled by a system, an external system. Now they get involved in, which is a side effect to another system that is affecting all kinds of other people all over the world. Now, when they get involved in the new age version of understanding another energetic space, then that actually is another system if you allow it to be. If you allow it to get to that space to where you start to use it as a system, now you're creating an internal system that is actually self-destructive, which is another space of like it's good for the control grid as a whole, because now you have people who just love and light everything. They're just like, oh, you bombed us? Oh, that's just, we'll just sprinkle some fairy dust on there. Let's just not read that book today or for the rest of the next decade. Let's just not look at that stuff. That's actually good for the control grid. They like that shit, because now they are allowed to do what they are doing, because people are not only aware of it, even on a spiritual space, but they are actually approving it by their lack of action, whether it be internal action by even just praying or meditating on it on a deeper space that is beyond that, because some people actually do that. They just act like the shit doesn't exist. Or you have these various layers where they don't they invest their energy into like being aware of it, but really don't go any further than that, because it's too uncomfortable to be vulnerable. It's too uncomfortable to get out of that space. And these teams get created, these like groups get created where people just kind of lock themselves into a like a drum circle of separation. Instead of, these are like drum circles, these are ceremonies that are locked into the allness, the collective space. These old ceremonies, these indigenous people, these dances, these are actually locking in. The new age stuff that's out there right now, when people get in, they create another box for themselves. They're just dancing within a box. These old indigenous aboriginal dances, these are not dancing in a box. These are spiritual dances for the all, for the collective. The Hopi are still dancing up there, not for themselves. They are dancing for the actual energetics of the entire collective. That is what's happening with all the indigenous people. And that's why the colonial program had to shut this down. And it's only the extension of the race relation stuff. All this, that shit is just the movie version of what's really going on here on the spiritual plane. They will never address the birth certificate program on the mainstream, because that goes into the soul level stuff that's going on, and your ownership, your slave reality. They will never address that stuff, because then they would have to start to address the colonial program and the indigenous people as a whole. They will have to face what actually has been done here. And this is why the New Age program exists out there, to make people not realize that the so-called they, have to answer for what has been done here. They are running and running and running and running and running, trying to run away from what has been done, in order to save their own like last thread that connects them to spirit, because they've severed all the other connections, even the connections of other people, other cultures, other people, other dances. This is why the earth plane is so sick and diseased right now, because this program has it's gone way too far, and the only thing that's keeping it up is the distractions that are out there, and the emotional tethering of these programs with these frequencies: television, radio, internet, social media, limited storylines, the globe model, transhumanism, the evolution theory. All this stuff is out there to keep you from really connecting to your organic internet, your organic connections. Everything has been synthesized and artificialized for you to pay your energy, spiritual and physical and psychological, into this program, completely destroying, sucking the energy, the parasiting off of the indigenous people and that storyline as a whole. So I just wanted to get that out, you know, kind of off of my chest, and kind of expand upon you know, what's really going on here, from the political scene and the flat earth talk and the Mandela effect and the new age stuff, all the way up into our ancestors. Because if you're talking about the stars in the sky, and you're talking about ancient indigenous peoples with all these flat earth, you know, maps and all this stuff, and you're talking about the Mandela effect, you're talking about consciousness, you're talking about energy, you're talking about magnetics, you're talking about electricity, the balances, the connections to the sun, the connections to the moon, the connections to everything. Now, that's what these dances are. These are dances, relationships with nature. And until we start to look deeply into ourselves and what we're really willing to let go of, what we're really willing to delve into to see what's going on here. Same reason why, like, the pyramids, they haven't looked into, they don't understand what this stuff is. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about Machu Picchu. They don't want to talk about the pyramids. You know damn well they know more than they're telling you about the pyramids, what happened, the connection to the indigenous people, Machu Picchu, how all those stones were cut, the connection between all the pyramids, what these obelisks are all over the place, what those arches are all over the place, energy as a whole. They're keeping all that a secret in order to bulk up the focus energy, the spiritual energy, into stuff like CERN, into stuff like the alien agenda, into stuff like the technological evolution program of the transhumanism agenda. This is the reason why they're keeping all this shit a secret. And if we keep focusing on what they are just releasing to us and thinking that that's our reality, then we are falling for a program. Because you won't challenge yourself to understand what was already here. What the people are still here doing these things. This is a technology. This dance, if people are so hooked on technology and all, this is a social media. Like these dances, these ceremonies, these are already social medias. These are already a consciousness, a collective internet. We already have this connection, but it's been synthesized, it's been turned into this artificial, transmuted into this artificial reality, and all the other people who are connected to that space have been demonized, called savages, and then close that book, throw the book underneath the museum, underneath the university system, and just create some new version of experiencing your reality. That's a problem. That's a big problem. But that's the norm today. And the norm has gone so far as to separating people from their nature and trapping people into this idea of what's normal. And if you look around and you see on television and in the politics, and you look at really what's normal and start asking yourself, is that natural? Is this natural? Is this really a natural thing? And understand what nature is. That's a different world. So we are being split into a different world. And this is how I see what's going on with the Mandela effect. Is a split between the artificial and the organic, the natural. And it's up to us, our conscious, our spiritual choice, to choose what it is, how we want to experience our reality. Are we going to experience it through the eyes, through the magic of another being, a parasite, or are we going to reconnect with what was already here, heal those wounds, and anchor our roots into something that is true? So that is basically all I wanted to do with this video. So thank you for joining me. Until next time, from Our Relations, peace, love, and harmony.